Hey guys, I'm Yagi Shatini, and today we're going to go over the background music system I used on the game Caesura. Now this is using Wwise, and we're going to detail all of the Wwise integration I did for this project. Like I always say, general disclaimer, there are tons of ways to implement systems, and the more complex you get, the more ways you can do it. This ranges from the audio you get from your DAW all the way to the engine, so if you feel like you would do something differently, feel free to let me know below. Now, some of the core things I wanted to make sure with this project is I wanted to really emulate the Breath of the Wild Hyrule Field Day music, so very ambient, sporadic melodies playing in the background, no like clear driving force melodically throughout, right? It's just very ambient and peaceful. We wanted to make sure we're going from that Explore music, Explore being this Hyrule Field um, vibe going on, and then that switching into combat dynamically, pretty much, based on wherever the level designers would place their combat arenas. And then I wanted all of this to be controlled by one master controller. That way I didn't have to hand place music switches where combat arenas were and all that. It would all be handled on its own. So as far as the intricate details here, what we're going to be looking at, we have our master track controlling 3 separate levels, and then each of those levels will share the same combat track. So this combat track is the same regardless of where you are in the game. There'll be some dynamic intensity scaling, but we're not going to look at that today. And then the other half of it is our Explore music. All 3 of them will share the same Breath of the Wild melody. I wrote Kondo melody here. Anytime you see that, Koji Kondo, just an OG Legend of Zelda composer. And then I added some pads to it just to make it a little less sparse. And then each level will have their specific melody and rhythm to make it a little more unique to them. So let's take a look inside of Wwise. Now the core thing here we have is our event, right? This is just going to post everything. The key things here, I know there's a lot in this event. All we really need is posting our switch container, posting our pads, posting the village themes, and we'll take a look at each one of those 3. The rest is just other game stuff, but those are the 3 events that are important for the background music. So let's talk about the Breath of the Wild system first. That's kind of what ultimately became the most complex. But here we have our master background music switch container, and this switch is only switching whether you're in combat or out of combat, and then what current level you're in. So this is not containing every single portion of the background music. This is really our switch of telling us whether we're in combat or not. You'll notice all of the in combat events, right, based on the level you're in, they're just posting the combat background music, which if I come here, our combat arena, it's the same everywhere. Let's just kind of give it a current level. Let's say we're in combat. And if we just play this, this is just a general music segment. Some random steps for each of the parts, just to give us some variation throughout, as well as some melodic content changing on the first half of the phrase, second half of the phrase, or not at all. All right, so all of that's just kind of changing throughout. So that's the same no matter what level you're in, and no matter kind of what stage of the game you're in, that combat music is going to post. Now for the Explore music, when we're in our not in combat stages, when we load the level or once we complete a combat arena, we switch to our fancy stuff. And this is like the Breath of the Wild kind of system itself. It looks very complicated, but I promise you it is not. All that's happening here is I have some, let's take that off. I have some guitar harmonic kind of sounds. I have some high-pitched harp sounds. And then I have some low-pitched harp sounds. All right, so a lot of these are just kind of untimed, like there's a tail beforehand, or there's silence beforehand, there's silence afterwards. I tried to keep it. It's still in the general, I believe everything's at 80 BPM. It's still kind of in that framework, playing for 2 bars, but there's a lot of silence, right? I wanted to make sure these are just played effectively rubato in a sense, and just not able to really track the rhythm. So all of this playlist container, this is only really varying which of these 3 it's going to take, including a couple silent tracks. So here I just made a bunch of empty music segments and then just changed the exit cue to be however long I wanted, whether it was 1 beat or 1 measure, 2 beats, 2 measures, and so on. And that way it just wasn't posting too frequently. So when I go to the actual playlist here, I start, it picks a harp low or a harp low again. I realized when I was playing it a lot and just having it run, I wanted some more harp low stuff. And, you know, a lot of this is just kind of random throwing things in just to balance it out. You could play with weighting a bit, right? All of this just depends on how you want it to sound. But I was playing around with how many things I wanted to play back to back. I didn't want 2 harp lows back to back, so I didn't put one here, and so on. And then I originally had a lot more silent picks inside of it, but then I realized, like, the occasions that it would pick a lot of silence, it wouldn't play a melody for a little too long. So I got rid of a lot of my silent containers in there. So I'll just play this a little bit. Guitar harmonic. Another harmonic. Silence. Harp. Silence, harp, and so on, right? It would just kind of go down here and then keep looping around. And that's really it as far as this Breath of the Wild theme came around. I tried a couple different variations on how I would post it. Maybe I'd fire the event with a low probability, but doing it this way kind of ensured that 2 things wouldn't overlap, right? Even if I gave this event like a 20% chance of being played, that does mean like maybe every bar it would play a different thing. You know, yes, 20% is low, but I figured it would be a lot easier to just have a playlist container and then just kind of sequence everything out in a way that just kind of felt right. So a lot of this, again, could be shuffled around, but for the final product, this seemed good and I was happy with it. So I didn't really change it much. But during the process, I was flipping things around a lot, adding more random step containers and so on. So yeah, that's really it with this switch container. Switching from my in combat track, which is just the master in combat situation going on, and then having my explore Breath of the Wild melodies in there. Now, all of this is going through an audio bus, and this is kind of the important thing and why I did it this way, because this is all going through what I labeled the melody audio bus. And this is just here to be here, right? It's controlling, it's getting the signal whenever a Breath of the Wild Explorer melody is playing. It knows it's playing, which is going to be important for the next thing we look at, which is our village theme, right? Every level had a specific rhythm associated to it and a melody associated to it. So if I look here, let's go with fungi theme. Let's force this one. All right, so this level had like an acoustic upright bass. Took the same melody, did a couple octaves of it. All right, so a few variations on the first half of the phrase, some variations on the second half of the phrase. You notice I like doing that a lot. And then a variation of nothing. So this is a fairly long phrase. So let's say it takes this first one and then it goes through. It's going to feel a lot silent. It's going to feel like a lot of silence. So during these breaks is when those more ambient Breath of the Wild type explore melodies would start playing. And the key thing controlling that, which I guess we'll look at in a second, let's look at the rhythm here first. If I can find it. So fungi rhythm. These are just done in stages. So everything else I like doing, like the actual melodies itself, these are random steps. But these here we have set on a switch. And this switch is set by the stage you're in. So based on the level progression, you know, if we pay attention to the percussive part, and then if you're in a later stage in the game, it just gets a little more active. So the level state itself is what's switching the fungi rhythm to be a little more dynamic and get a little more intense towards the end of the level, whereas the actual melodies themselves for each level this is just a random container to play every now and then. So yeah, during these segments where nothing is playing is when you would hear the Breath of the Wild explore melody type situation going on, and that's mostly controlled by the buses. These level themes, specifically just the actual melody, you'll notice the rhythm is playing through the game BGM bus, which is the parent of all this stuff, but the themes themselves are playing from a level theme bus. So I overrode the parent, and these are the level themes. So when I'm getting signal from these melody tracks, right, that's my fungi one. You know, if I change to, let's say, the village, where are you? So they have their own kind of unique identifier to them. When I'm getting signal from these melody tracks, I'm ducking the melody track or the melody bus itself. So when I get signal from my melody theme, or from my level theme rather, I'm ducking the melody track all the way down. It just fades out, and then once it's done playing, it fades back in. So that way, no matter what those explore themes are playing, like even during this stuff, it's just ducked all the way down. It's muted, so you can't hear it. Once these are done playing, it fades back in, allows those more ambient melodies to start playing in the background. So that was the best way I kind of got to make sure it still plays, and it varies between them. So these are a little more advanced versions in a way of the explore melodies that's unique to each level. All right, so now the final piece is kind of the easiest thing, just to give it a little more body. I just added some pads holding. And these are almost playing throughout the whole game. They're just very in the background, pretty quiet in general. But if we just look here, I have a octave 1C, an octave 2C, G, and then power chords combining them. That way it kind of gave this sense that the world was like humming, right? Kind of a background layer between everything, so it's not awkwardly silent through everything. I found that even just adding a little wind and environmental ambience wasn't quite enough, so I added these pads to it. So if we take a look at everything, let's go to our Soundcaster. Let's do not in combat. We'll go back to fungi. That was level 1. So that was one of the high harp melodies playing. We have our rhythm going. Another explore. So we haven't had the level theme yet, right? It's still a lot of those explore melodies coming in. I'm waiting for one, but that's part of it. Like, I didn't want it to kind of keep playing over and over again. So this is a good example of the randomness playing here. Alright, so if I switch to the harmonic. Alright, if I walked into a combat encounter, this would start playing. And let's say we're fighting. Yay. And then we switch, we kill everything. It flips back. There's our level theme for Fungi playing. And during this time, we cannot get one of the Explore melodies. But now that it's done, we have room for the Explore melodies to come back in. And there was one right there. Alright, so that was really it when it comes to the system. I mean, the final thing, really small, controlling the whole bus. You know, we just have our music sliders for the game settings. But that's like a master BGM. It controls everything. And yeah. So the event itself, if we look back at that one more time. Right, I'm playing my BGM switch container that contains my combat music and the Explore melodies. I'm posting my pads, so that's just kind of playing throughout, just holding and sustaining. And then I'm also playing the village theme. So this is what keeps everything kind of in time, and it's keeping that rhythm there. The BGM track, the master BGM switch container, that goal is really just there for switching between the Explore melodies and the combat. And then, you know, that kind of contains that bus where when I'm playing the village theme, this is effectively muted, so I won't hear it, with the exception of the combat themes, right? That's in the parent bus, so that won't get muted. But when combat's playing, everything else is shut off, and then when combat's done, everything else is turned back on. And yeah, those were the three core things there. But that's it with this Breath of the Wild type background music system I made for Caesura. If you had any questions with any of these systems, then let me know below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thanks.